Genesis, a design-focused luxury automotive brand that embodies the philosophy of athletic elegance. Choose from the award-winning G70 sports sedan, the midsize luxury sedan G80, JD Power's most dependable midsize premium car 2 years running, or the flagship G90 full-size luxury sedan. Genesis is also redefining what a modern luxury SUV should be with the all-electric GV60, the award-winning GV70, and the luxurious GV80. Genesis vehicles provide simple elegance, athleticism, and sophistication, ranking the highest among all premium automotive brands in the JD Power US Initial Quality Study. Start defining your future. This is Genesis. Check out genesis.com for more information. I want to thank you for making time for us,
Of
and in
course.
particular, thanks to your entire team and the literally dozens of people who made this interview possible. It means a lot,
Thank you.
personally and professionally. And so,
Thank you.
you just hosted fellow South Asians,
Yeah.
both at your residence and at the White House,
Yes.
to celebrate Diwali.
Yes.
How did that happen? How was that for you, and what do you remember most about that?
It was so special. I mean, this is the first year since we've been in office that we don't have the COVID restrictions, right? So it was the first time. I mean, only last year we couldn't do it, and this year. But opening my home to celebrate one of the holidays that I have such fond memories about as a child. You know, we would go back to India every other year growing up, and usually go back around this season because also we, avoiding monsoon season. Anybody who travels to Asia knows what I'm talking about, and it was just the most wonderful tradition of family, of celebration, and food, but also the poignant point about Diwali is it's a very universal concept shared by so many cultures, which is the importance of fighting the darkness with light, right? And so it's about enlightenment over ignorance. It's about good over evil. It's about bringing the light to moments of darkness, which we still experience in our country, and also recognizing and reminding people of the light within themselves, right? That they have the power then and the duty to shed on moments of darkness.
I got a glimpse of it from our friends Doreen and Cal Penn, who
Yes,
were there
yes.
and sharing all through
I know.
Instagram and social media. And I could tell that it meant obviously something extra special
Yeah.
to celebrate it with you.
Yeah.
And the importance of that.
Yeah.
And so happy final day of Diwali and happy
Thank
belated
you.
birthday to
Thank
you
you
as
so
well.
very much. That's
Lots to
very
celebrate
kind of
here
you.
today.
Thank you.
Briefly share with us your Asian American origin story for your family, and how has that helped you navigate your career?
So my mother came to the United States from India at the age of 19 by herself to study. She wanted to be a cancer researcher, and she specialized in breast cancer. And, the origin behind that is also how progressive my grandfather was. My mother was the eldest, and as we know in Asian cultures, birth order has a lot to do with things. And he let his eldest daughter travel by herself to a transcontinental travel to a place she'd never been. There's so much about my experience in terms of my Indian background that is obviously informed through my family. And my grandfather was just this really progressive guy. He taught us from my mother through me that we could be anything, do anything, and shouldn't let other people's limitations limit us.
Right.
And so she came to the United States at 19. She was probably supposed to go, well, I know she was supposed to go back and have a good arranged marriage, but she met my father and had a love marriage.
Yeah.
And, but she was a very, proud of her culture and her background and taught it to us.
Yeah.
And then Maya and I were born.
Yeah. I think our parents always, they bring us to this country with hopes of do anything you want.
Yeah.
And I think in your case, that's, was that within the realm of possibility or even probability, right? When they said do whatever you want for you to have this position. And so, I think, for the parents out there, keep telling your kids that, because none of us know what's going to be possible. And so, when you became VP, there was many headlines. First, ... right? First woman, first Black person, first Asian American. How did you balance what that meant for so many people, like myself, but also as the leader, you want to be known for what you do and what you can do. How do you balance that?
It's a great question. Well, the first part of it is really my interpretation, in terms of my experience of it, is really almost entirely about my sense of duty, which is something we learn. Duty, right? It's not it's not about your choice, it's about your duty. It's not if you feel like it, it's your duty. And I was raised with a sense of duty. And on this point then, the duty that I have to, as my mother would say, be the first but not the last. And what that means in terms of providing each step of the way an opportunity for others to be on that path, but also enter that door, and hopefully I widen the door. That's mostly how I've experienced it, is with a sense of responsibility because of what it means. And that gets to the second part of your point, which is, and so then, while here, to do something with this. So, for example, we're here today talking about, I'm here in Seattle today talking about unveiling work that I started back when I was in the Senate around rolling out electric school buses and what that will mean for 25 million children a day, but what it will mean for creating a new industry within the United States, building up the skills of a new workforce, and the sustained impact that is going to have generationally, but in terms of our economy, in terms of our standing, in terms of our competitiveness as a nation.
You are a mixed-race American, and our country is turning more that way. More of our families are mixed-race marriages, mixed-race children, very multicultural. What message do you have to the student who looks around their classroom today and they're the only one that looks like them?
You are not alone, and don't ever feel that you are alone, and don't ever let the circumstances make you feel that you're alone. When you walk in those rooms, know that you walk in those rooms carrying the voice of so many people who are proud of you and who are applauding you every step of the way. So you use that voice with the full force that you carry when you walk in that room. That's so important. Never feel that you are alone, because you are not.
Absolutely. The last 2 years have been challenging for all Americans, but particularly for Black Americans and Asian Americans, as we've had to face, read about, and even just experience ourselves increases in hate incidents, racism, and feelings of being unwanted. What have you learned about the love, the beauty, and the resilience of our communities during those 2 years?
Well, there's a lot there. I mean, the reality of it is that racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, these things are not new in this country. They're not. But the progress that we have made is because individuals, communities, and coalitions of people have been willing to stand up and fight against it. And so part of how I think about this issue is, one, I come at it from a very strong belief that no one should be made to fight alone. So an injustice against any one of us is an injustice against all of us. Therefore, when we see these crimes, when we see this hate speak occurring, everyone must stand up. I also think of it in the context of the experience that I had growing up and experiencing that hate and knowing what that was, and knowing how it can make people live in fear in a way that I think is intended to make people feel small and to make people feel insecure. And I refuse to let that happen to any one of us. And that gets back to the point of, we are not alone, and all people must stand up together when these kinds of injustices occur. As Attorney General of California for 2 terms, I published hate crimes reports. In California, people think of it as being such a progressive state. Well, when you look at the hate crime statistics, you will understand that it is a microcosm of the United States. And we see crimes against the API community. We see crimes against the Black community. We see anti-Semitism, homophobia. It manifests in awful ways. I think the importance, though, here is, again, I can't emphasize enough, we can never be silent in the face of hate, because then it's winning. Then the people who are spewing the hate are winning. They're winning if they make us silent. I think that's one of the important points that has to be emphasized over and over again, because at the moment that it's happening, it's not necessarily how people feel.
So on that note, it seems the country is divided on many issues. Um, how do you remain optimistic at a time where sometimes it's easy to feel a little less hopeful and to disengage? How do you remain optimistic engaged?
Again, if you look at the history of our country, we go through moments like this. But we recover, we rebound, we progress because we who are optimistic and aspirational and patriotic are not willing to give up. You know, I often talk about what I believe to be the true nature of democracy, which is that I believe there's a duality to it. On the one hand, democracies are very strong, meaning that when a democracy is intact, it protects and defends individual rights, freedom, liberty, civil rights, human rights, equality. It's strong in that way in terms of what it does for the individual. On the other hand, democracies are very fragile. Our democracy will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it. Or just to put it another way, don't let the haters win. Just, we have to stand up and know again that I think true patriotism is about believing in the ideals of our country and fighting toward achieving those ideals.
Well, that's the perfect segue to my final question, which is Election Day is in a week.
Yes.
What's the message to people who, again, may feel disengaged, that their voice doesn't matter, particularly communities of color who sometimes often may have felt that they are unheard? What's their message? What's your message to the Americans out there to get out and vote?
So, our communities of color, young voters, voted in record numbers in 2020. In the height of a pandemic, with loss of life, of jobs, of normalcy, trying to get your kids educated online and figuring out the technology, with so many burdens on their lives, people turned out in record numbers in 2020, and they put in their order. That's how I think of it. Yeah. And they said, I'm going to vote because I want to see my country deal with the issue of child poverty. And because people turned out in record numbers, we extended the child tax credit, which reduced child poverty in America by over 40%. People said, I want to see you support parents and people who are parenting children. And because they put that order in and voted in 2020, we created a tax cut for people who are parenting children, up to $8,000 more in their pocket for the cost of food and medical supplies and school supplies. People put in their order and said, we want to see a judiciary that looks like America. And we have increased the number of AAPI representation on the federal courts, not to mention putting the first black woman on the United States Supreme Court. Yeah. People put in their order and they said, we want to see you deal with the cost of insulin. Asians have a high rate of diabetes. A very high rate of diabetes in terms of diagnosis as compared to many other populations. So we capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. So many of our seniors were struggling to buy the prescription of insulin that they need to save their life versus paying for rent, paying for food. And we've now capped that cost at $35 a month. People put in their order in 2020, and things happened as a result. All of that to say, it matters when you vote. It matters. And when we're seeing such extremism, when we're seeing so-called leaders use their positions of power to engage in marginalizing communities, diminishing communities, we got to speak out. And one of the most effective ways to do that, of the many, is to vote. Don't let people silence you, and don't let anyone take away your vote, which is what you'll be doing if you don't vote.
Right.
You'll be letting them win. They who are trying to discourage your faith in these systems, they who are pushing the big lies, are doing it with the intention, I believe, of turning you off on your belief that you can actually make a difference.
Right.
Don't let them win. Don't let them win on that.
Yeah.
You will make a difference, but you have to vote.
Yeah, you gotta get loud, stay loud.
That's exactly
vote.
right. That's exactly right.
Yep. And I want to commend your administration on working with our community and getting the messages out.
Yeah.
We've done work here on the podcast with your census,
Yeah.
with the vaccine campaign through HHS, and it matters that the message comes out through specific channels that resonate with specific communities. I want to say thank you particularly for making time for the Asian Americans, because I started this show in March of 2020
Yeah.
as a gift to my daughter. I often think about this experience and leading up to it, thinking about, did I even think that this would be possible?
Yeah.
And the answer was no, because I don't know if I knew on March 2nd, 2020, that we would have an Asian American vice president.
Yeah.
And so here we are. It's super, super cool for me, for my kids, and for our audience. So thank you for what you do and what you mean to us.
And I just want to say, though, that my success, your success, is based on people who for years believed in what was possible and paved the way. And one of the things that we know culturally and just in life is that we must always honor those who came before us, who paved this way. And it is then now our duty to all of them
Yeah.
to carry on and not waste this moment, because that's part of our legacy, is inheriting the benefit of people who never rested, who never tired, who never gave up. So let's honor
Yeah.
their legacy and do the same. It's what they expect.
Yep. We're here because of them, and our descendants will look up to us and
Exactly
hopefully
right.
thank us for all the things that we've
That's
done
exactly
to
right.
make their lives better.
That's right.
Vice President Harris, thank you so much from
Thank
the bottom
you.
of my heart to the
Thank
entire
you.
team for making this
Thank
a
you.
reality.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's good to be with you.
Likewise.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
It's really good to be with you.
Likewise.
Thank you.